Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and, well, thank you everybody for tuning in to Mills and Chill. Once again, you're joining us for Texting Under the Influence. Don't forget to check out some of the great publications from Mills and Boon, and some of the fantastic public works of Cara Lockwood, the author of this particular piece. And, should go without saying, but we're going to mention it anyway. Unofficial narration. Please give all credit to Mills and Boon Publishing House and the author, Cara Lockwood. Fantastic book, and looking forward to reading more of her stuff. All right. Well, if you haven't got yourself a drink yet, now might be the time. And let's get into it. This is Chapter 7 of Texting Under the Influence. Jax, Jenna begun, her attention torn between her ex and Jack, as her mind whirled in confusion, her insides roiling, as 1,000 different questions tumbled through her mind. One, however, kept popping up to the surface. What was he doing here? Jenna should have known this would happen. Jax was a man who loved the chase, and the more she ignored him, the more he wanted her. How many times in the past had she avoided his calls and texts, secretly hoping he'd come over? Well, more than a few. She should have known he would do something like this, and yet, seeing him, standing on her porch, wearing his ratty jeans and too tight long-sleeve crew that outlined all his muscles, took her by surprise. Maybe it was because this time you weren't secretly hoping he'd show up. For the first time in perhaps ever, Jenna was actually genuinely disappointed to see him there. She still felt that warm buzz from the wine at dinner, but she was nowhere near drunk. Instinctively, she moved closer to Jack. She realized that and tightened a grip on his elbow. He edged slightly in front of her protectively. "I don't think we've met," he said, extending his hand. His lips curled into a dangerous smile. "Jack Kearney." Jack swayed a little on his feet, his eyes bleary. God, he's been drinking. The realization hit Jenna like cold autumn wind. Drunk, Jax could do anything. He tended to either get surly or horny when he was drunk, and by the frown on his face, Jenna guessed he was in the mood for a brawl. "Fuck off," Jack growled, his big meaty hands curling into fists. "I'd be happy to, lad, but you're standing in front of a lady's doorway and I'm here to see her home safely." Jack snorted and tensed, his muscles tensing against his long-sleeve tee. "She's home, so you can fuck off." He stumbled a little, but his bleary eyes stayed focused on Jack. "Jax," Jenna cried, "go home, sleep it off." His expression grew softer there for a minute. "Jenna, I love you, you know? I love you. You're so amazing and..." Drunk, he lost his train of thought as he swayed dangerously on his feet. "I can't help that I'm the way I am. I don't deserve you, but I wish you'd let me try." He swiped at his nose. It was exactly the kind of speech that would made Jenna pause in the past, but now she could see through it. "Jax, please go home." "You heard her," Jax said, voice calm. "Time to go home." Jack stumbled forward and Jack put his hand on his shoulder to stop the movement. Jack swung a wild punch then, quicker than Jenna thought he could have under the influence. Jack dodged, but Jack's forward momentum meant that he crashed into Jenna, sending her tumbling backwards into Jack's car door. Her elbow hit it with a bone-clanging thud. Pain shot up her arm. Jack was quick to steady her with his hand. "Jenna," Jack shouted, uselessly somewhere behind Jack. "Are you all right, lass?" Jack asked, concern all over his face. "I'm fine," Jenna said, and winced, holding her elbow. She just wanted Jax to go away and to get inside her house. Jack kept his hand on her arm. "Get your hands off her," Jax growled. "She's my girlfriend." Jax, unperturbed by the fact he'd just knocked Jenna into a car, attacked Jack again, punching him in the side of his head, right in his ear. Jenna screamed, but Jack grabbed the side of his head. Off kilter, but still standing, Jack shook his head, trying to get his bearings as he focused on Jax with a dangerous glint in his eye. He grinned. A dimple showed in his cheek. "You shouldn't have done that, lad." He put up both fists, but part of me is glad you did. Jenna stood frozen on the sidewalk as Jax circled Jax, both men large and imposing. Jax had the bulky kind of muscle, but Jack's lean frame meant that he could move faster. Jack wasn't afraid at all, and the fact that he was sober and ready to get into it with Jax threw her ex. She could tell by the confused look on his face. Jax was used to hitting a guy once and that being the end of it. Jack, apparently, wasn't going to go down so easy. "Why are you smiling, man?" Jax asked his opponent, both confused and annoyed at the same time. Jack circled in front of Jax, grinning from ear to ear. "Because this is gonna hurt, man." Jack promised. Jenna didn't know what to do. Should she try and get them to stop the fight? Could she even? Jax lunged clumsily at Jack, who sidestepped and then punched with deadly accuracy. Hitting Jax square in the chin, the blow sent him reeling backwards almost on his heels. Almost against the side of her building. Jenna looked up and down the nearly deserted sidewalk, but no one was willing to help. She couldn't see anyone at all. She grabbed a phone from a purse. Should she call 911? But what if that got Jack arrested? "Stop it," she shouted at the two of them. "I will when he does," Jack promised. "Go to hell," Jack spat, spitting blood on the ground. He stumbled forward again, and this time Jack hit him in the nose, sending Jax backward once more, both hands covering his nose. "Go home, lad," Jack advised him. "Fuck off," Jax cursed, but this time he didn't advance again. Blood spurting from his nose, he tried to contain the flow with his hands. He glanced up at Jenna, searching for a look of pity, but she wasn't about to go and console him. She cradled her sore elbow with her free hand. The jerk had asked for it, and Jack had given it to him. "Leave me alone, Jax," Jenna said, walking past him to a front door. Jack followed her, eyes never leaving Jax as he swiped angrily at his nose. "This isn't over," Jax promised. "It is for tonight," Jack retorted. Jax tottered unsteadily on his feet, glaring, but eventually turned and walked away, nose still bleeding. Jack followed Jenna into her building, pulling the door shut behind them. Jenna shot up her stairs and through a front door, hurriedly throwing all the bolts and chain behind them. "Don't worry, lass, he won't bother you tonight." Jack pulled Jenna on her couch. They both sank into the soft cushions. "How's that elbow?" "Sore," Jenna admitted, and it was. Jack helped her out of her coat. "Let me take a look," he said, but as he carefully tugged at her sleeve, he examined her elbow with a certain intensity. "Looks like it should work, but I see the start of a bruise." Jenna noticed the fierce redness on Jack's ear where Jax had landed his one and only punch. "How's your ear?" He tugged at it self-consciously. "Fine," he said. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Watching Jack in motion had been like a ringside seat in a professional boxing match. Jax's moves had been awkward and drunk, but Jack moved with the quiet ferocity of a lion. "I grew up in a not-so-nice part of Dublin, and I had 4 sisters' honour to protect, so you could say that I learned how to throw a punch young." Jack shrugged. "Guys like Jax are all bark and hardly any bite. Once a fight gets serious, they'll back off. Like he did tonight. All bark and no bite. Pretty much sums up Jax all right." Jenna agreed, figuring that the words were never truer than Jack even knew. Jax was all about bluster and whether he was promising to be a good boyfriend or getting a better job. The more Jenna thought about it, the more she thought Jack had really shown her the true Jax. "Does he always hang around your apartment late at night?" Jack asked, eyebrow quirked. She could hear the jealous edge to his voice. She knew she had to tread carefully. "Sometimes," she admitted, "usually only when I ignore him for a while." "You've been ignoring him, then?" Jack's voice sounded a little hopeful. "I've been busy." She grinned at Jack, and he pulled her close. "If he ever shows up here again, you call me, and I'll make sure he leaves you alone." Jack's eyes flashed with determination and an iron will, and Jenna knew he was serious. The offer of protection hit her on a primal level. She'd spent most of her life chafing under the possessiveness of boyfriends that she forgot just how good the possessiveness could feel. What would she have done if she'd come home to find a drunk Jax on her porch and she hadn't agreed to let him in and sleep with him? She hadn't considered how ugly it could get if it was just her on her own. There was something so primal, so completely seductive about a man who knew how to fight for what he wanted and was prepared to do it. She glanced up at him and realized that they were so close now on the couch. Their noses almost touched. His lips found hers, and she kissed him with the kind of ferocity she usually saved for Jax. But the kiss was 1,000,000 times better than any Jax had attempted. For the first time, Jenna realized that maybe what she had with Jax hadn't been electric at all. Maybe it had just been convenient. Jenna straddled Jack, cradling his stubbly face between her hands. The kiss deepened, all of her bells ringing like a 4-alarm fire. As Jack explored her mouth with his tongue, she felt the pressure of his growing arousal between her legs, and then suddenly he scooped her up, his arms and hands beneath the bottom. Her legs wrapped around his waist. "We're doing this, right?" he murmured, as he carried her to the bedroom. He toppled down on top of her and her rumpled sheets, his hands pulling up her sweater as she whipped off her clothes. He peeled off his top layers, and she urgently tugged at his pants. Instantly they were gone, and Jenna ran her hands down the smooth, hard length of him. He groaned, pushing her into touch, his mouth ravishing hers. "Jenna," he murmured into her mouth. "Oh, God." She let him go, even as he teased her by drawing his thick tip between her legs. Her whole body reacted in an instant, her belly turning to a hot liquid goo as he teased her gently. All she wanted in that moment was to feel him inside her, filling her up, making her his. Nothing else mattered in that moment. He pulled away from her, their eyes meeting for the briefest of seconds, and she could see the want in his eyes, too, the need for her. She spread her legs wider, and he plunged in, as she cried out, shuddering with pleasure, each new thrust pushing her closer to the edge. Her breathing ragged, she grabbed his shoulders, feeling the hefty weight on top of her as he pushed deeper inside of her. He stared at her with determination and a wildness, an instinctual animalistic need to make her his. Jenna lost all rational thought as sensations of pure pleasure rippled through her. She came again and again, the waves of breathtaking sensation washing over her like a tidal wave. Her breath came in ragged gasps as Jack, too, climaxed. He held her tightly until he collapsed, spent on her bare chest. They lay tangled, a sweaty, satisfied heap, their hearts contracting wildly in their chests, thrumming to a shared rhythm. Jenna put her arms around Jack, feeling satisfied and protected, feeling whole. Then came the cold realization, like a chilly storm off the lake. They'd not used any protection, and she'd gone off the pill.